G'day guys, Tours20 here and welcome back to Marble Mountain. It's been a little while since I've done a Marble Mountain episode. Apologies for that. It's been probably about a month since I last played a Marble Mountain. I know we've been doing little bits of episodes here and there, but I actually did them a couple of weeks ago. I think it's been about a month. I can't really remember. It's been a while though. I've been working on Sichuan province and I did some work in little France, which you'll see in a little while. And I've started working on another series. I know, it's kind of crazy, but I'll talk a bit about that a little bit later on. But I've started working on something new. But it is damn good to be back. We are going to be working on this town that I started in the last episode, or maybe the episode before. And I put it to you guys, what is this town all about? Because it's pretty unusual. It's like all abandoned and we've got some like big hotels. So it was like once a pretty decent touristic area, but now it's like a bit of a ghost town. Yeah, with cows. So I put it to you guys, why the hell is this place abandoned? And a lot of people talking about tourism and then there's some sort of accident. Keep those comments coming. I really enjoy reading them. One thing that we have done, we've actually named the town, we've called it Lakeland Springs, but the locals call it Tumbleweed, which I really like that it has two names. And I really like the name Tumbleweed because it's kind of what it's like at the moment. It's a bit of a ghost town. So it's kind of a bit of a, nod to what it was once, this bit more of a grand touristic location. And now it's a bit of a tumbleweed sort of a place. So I love those names and I will love to keep on getting your suggestions about why this place became so abandoned. It was definitely a touristic area, but now it is not so much. But today, we're not just going to be talking about the names and the reasons why people have left. We're going to be doing some work around this location because I want to start working on the train station. It's pretty under detailed. I mean, man, it is a damn good looking station, but we do need to do some work on it. So what I'm thinking, we're also getting a lot of train traffic coming through here. So I'm going to have to figure out a way of maybe minimizing that because I think that's a little bit too much. I think we might need to just tone it down a little bit. We'll start getting a bit of traffic, I think. So what I'm thinking I'll probably end up putting a park around here. I've already started putting out a gazebo and stuff, but I'll put like some sort of like very dry looking park with a couple of paths and maybe like a couple of shops around here, but nothing too much. In terms of the actual station, I'm thinking that we'll probably put some trees in these little locations and I might extend out this a little bit more, maybe using some of the parking lot roads rather than having that vanilla looking road, because I think we can probably do a little bit better, mixing in a bit of that. So I'll probably do something like that and extend it out a little bit more around here. I also think that this might be a great location for potentially some sort of cargo area, but I'm a bit hesitant to do anything like that, mostly because I don't want to take too much away from the town. And I also don't want to go too much bigger. So, I mean, whatever I put around these sort of areas, they're going to be quite sparse, that's the word. A bit sparse. So, just like pockets of houses and some farms, but I want to keep a little bit of this area open. I don't want to just like build heaps and heaps. So I don't know, we'll think about a bit of industry in this location. And then probably extending out a little bit further around here, might extend over the swampland a little bit further and just make this whole transition a little bit better because it's a bit iffy. It's not too good. All right, so that's the plan going into things. Let's see how far I get. All right, wish me luck. Alright, so in true $2 style, I'm sure you guys are very much used to this statement, but I did not get as much done as I thought I would. As usual, I got hung up on the detail work and just getting really into what I was building and just didn't get as far as I thought I would, but that's fine because I'm really happy with what I got done. We ended up detailing this train station pretty well. I'm really happy with how it turned out. The park opposite it, and then we also just added in a couple of extra buildings and some, just filling out the rest of this little town. And I also create, and I don't know if I will make this the thumbnail or not, but I create this really awesome looking abandoned motel. I really love it. It's totally custom, like it's not a, use a couple of buildings to created. It's not a real motel, and it's totally abandoned and has some wildlife walking around it. It's really cool. So yeah, look forward to that. I'm really happy with how that bit turns out. So this little part, I'm going to be just detailing up the train station. Like I said before, this is the train station from Arrowhead Junction, which was a series that was done way back, I think maybe like 3 years ago, with Fresh Popcorn and Flux Trans and Strict Toaster. And I remember when they used this asset, this building, I was like, this is such a great looking train station, and I always wanted to use it. And like 3 years later, I'm finally getting to it. So yeah, it's taken a while. But I think it fits in really well in this location. It even says Arrowhead Junction on the sign, which is so small you won't even notice that little bit of detail. And I'm pretty sure it's Tim DeTerrible who created this. It's really, he's done a really nice job at making it. It has a lot of detail on the actual building. But then he gives you a lot of room to actually add your own bits of detail. It doesn't come with any sort of ugly car parks. It came with one little car park, but I just sort of extended it out a little bit, adding in my own spaces and just extending it. And now I'm just going through and just adding in some props. Not doing too... actually, I'm doing a fair bit of detail, to be honest. These custom signs that were created for Marble Mountain by the people on Discord, they add so much to the atmosphere of this, just give it that little bit of extra character that all of Marble Mountain seems to have. And I just ended up dragging a fence around most of it and just plopping down some benches and some trash cans and some lights. I was gonna put an awning over these seats like I have with other train stations in Marble Mountain, but I thought it would probably take away from the building. So I ended up just leaving them off. I'm sure it probably doesn't rain too much out this way, but I'm sure there's quite a lot of sun damage that'll be going on around here. I've also just added in a building, like a little cafe. I thought this would probably still be quite active. There'd still be a fair amount of people coming and going, using the public transport. So I thought maybe a cafe would be a good location here. I don't know if you guys saw the last episode or the episode where we created this this town, but basically this town is pretty much abandoned. Well, maybe not abandoned, it's just not as bustling as it once used to be. And I wanted most of the buildings around here to have that look as if they were constructed with the idea that a lot of people are around, and then not so much so. People have sort of stopped coming. So a lot of the infrastructure and parks and things that I'm creating, I'm doing it with the idea that a lot of people would be here, but not so much. So everything has like a bit of a well constructed but then badly maintained look to them. So a lot of piles of dirt and overgrown bits of shrubbery, and nothing, everything's got cracks on it. So that's sort of like my building style when working around here. Alright, so before I get too deep into everything I am doing on screen, I wanted to let you know that I'm going to be doing something a bit different at the end of each video. From now on, I'm going to be doing a verbal shout out to 3 or so of my patrons, just going through the list of people who are supporting me, $5 or more, because I've just started doing my 4 days a week at my 9-to-5 job, and now I have 1 day a week, my Wednesdays, which is today for me doing the commentary now, to dedicate just to my channel, which is truly amazing. I'm doing commentary today, I've done a couple of builds, I've done a bit of admin, and it's just been such a useful amount of time just to get a lot of my channel stuff done, and I'm really loving it. A big thanks of that is to you guys, and a big thanks of that is to my patrons too, who are allowing me to have a day off a week, which is amazing. So I'd like to give an extra shout out to those guys. So I think a really nice way of doing that is like a bit of a verbal shout out at the end of each video. So I'm going to be doing that. If you are interested in becoming a patron, it's not just shout outs you get, there's also save games and other things like that. So yeah, just thought I'd let you know. So I've just been working on some of the houses that are going to finish up the general layout of this town. Going for the same formula of just like a lot of spaces in between each house. I didn't really want these houses to be really, really close by. You know, you can kind of imagine that a lot of the houses that used to sit here have probably been knocked down or abandoned and sold off. So a lot of vacant properties. And I also put down a little bit of farmland. You might have noticed. I think that, you know, there would probably be a lot of farming areas that now occupy these areas now that a lot of the main buildings have left. And now I'm starting to work on this motel or hotel or whatever you like to call it. So this is custom. I don't know if I'd recommend doing this. So this is like me being incredibly stubborn with the way that Marble Mountain is. Basically, this whole series is, you know, I try my absolute hardest to build something using the assets that I have, whether they be vanilla or they be some incredibly versatile assets that I've downloaded from the workshop. And basically, if I have no way of being able to build it, so if I can't see a way of getting around what I want to build without using the assets that I have, then I will go to the workshop and download something. So I'm not totally limited to what I have. I will grab things from the workshop from time to time. But I think like the essence of this series is to sort of like try my hardest to use what I have and then just go from there. So I don't know if I'd recommend doing this, to be honest. I highly recommend you going and checking out some of the amazing assets on the workshop that are pretty much exactly like this, but way better and way easier to create. So there's actually a bunch of really great abandoned looking motels on the workshop, and there's even like some abandoned pools, which I end up creating my own pool that's like deserted and dried up and looking pretty average. But there's way better looking pools on the workshop, so I'd suggest doing that. But just for the sake of this series, I managed to create my own. So what I ended up doing is I ended up using some buildings that, these are some buildings created by King Leno, and they are just residential properties. They, you know, obviously hold a couple of rooms, a couple of families, I guess, would live in these places. And I thought that, you know, just by splicing them together, there's 3 of those of the buildings in there, they sort of make a pretty decent looking hotel. I don't know if you noticed me do it, but I didn't have any doors. I haven't been subscribed to any extra doors from the workshop, so I ended up just using the back. I'm pretty sure it's of like a vending machine, and that worked pretty well. I was actually pretty impressed with how that worked. But again, wouldn't recommend it. Just download something from the workshop. Just don't be stingy like me. Just go and get something. And I wanted this to look like it was, you know, on the corner of this intersection. This would have been one of the first hotels you probably saw as you know, coming into Lakeside Springs, and now it's just like there's no use for it. Nobody wants to stay here. So there's a couple of deserted cars in here. These are just vanilla cars. Again, better cars on the workshop, so grab them. And I just placed down a couple of decals just to really crack up the surfaces, and also these dirt decals work really nicely with the Springwood map theme, because it looks like the dirt has like washed over onto the roads. You know, no one's cleaning these roads, so like they're just covered in dirt. Couple of cracks, and at some stage you'll see me like put down some tufts of grass, which just look great because it just shows that like nature's coming back and reclaiming this. And I also wanted to create this pool. So this pool is just created by me sinking into the ground just a network. I think it might be one of the like the paths that I just put down into the ground. And you can't see it because it's dirt colored, so you just like, you know, push it down into the ground and you don't even notice it's there. And then I'm using a bit of the networks, the concrete networks, which are used for pretty much everything. They're so versatile. One of the most, if not the most useful network on the workshop. And then some tiles and some piles of stuff just in the middle of the, like inside the actual pool, to show that things have just been thrown in. Would have been cool to have some like televisions or mattresses and something like that to put in there too, just to show that people have like been inside the buildings and then like just thrown them into the pool. But yeah, obviously don't have those assets, unfortunately, but I did just put down like a couple of tables and boxes and stuff like that in there. I think it's pretty decent. It looks like realistic enough, but again, there's like better stuff in the workshop, so go and grab them. Let me know, by the way, if you're like, dude, just grab more stuff in the workshop, then just let me know. I am being incredibly stingy, but you know, this is just that sort of series. You know, I have a lot of different challenges, I guess, in my different projects, and just one aspect of Marble Mountain is me just trying to be as stingy as possible, not use too much stuff from the workshop, for the sole reason of me just being stubborn, to be honest. But my next series that's going to be coming out pretty shortly, that's going to basically make really good use of the workshop. No more of this stingy $2.20. I'll be going back to my roots of downloading lots of stuff from the good old workshop. And I just thought I'd just make a little bit more atmosphere in this area and putting down some more of those palm trees, which is becoming a bit of a classic look for this area, and for all of Marble Mountain, using a lot of the palm trees. It's got a very big California-esque vibe to it, which is the area that I'm taking the most amount of inspiration from. I'm also really loving using the King Leno pack that he created for the, I believe it was the university houses. It's like a university pack, and it's on the workshop. So it's not on the workshop. It is on the workshop. It's a pack that you can download as part of like the City Skylines series, and it's just so good. The houses are really detailed and they're really versatile. So I've just been using a bunch of them. I wasn't going to use them, but Skip ended up using them in one of the builds, and so I just was like, you know what, let's just use these. But I'm so glad I did, because they work so well in so many different areas. Really putting a lot of the vanilla buildings to shame, so I'm just going for it. And again, I didn't get quite as far as I wanted to in this episode, but I think I'd really like to work on this area in a live stream. I think we're sort of at that stage where this area would make for like some really interesting live streams, which I think I'm going to probably do on the weekend. So if you're watching this, I might be doing that right now, to be honest, because I'll probably do it on the Sunday morning for me. Most of you guys will be living on Saturday. But yeah, I think I'll probably work on this in a live stream. Fingers crossed on the weekend. So now I'm going to be finishing up this area by just putting in like the outskirts of the town. This area is going to be a little bit of industrial that's going to sit around the train station, but unlike what I said in the live play at the very beginning, I decided to not do too much in terms of cargo and in terms of industry, because I just sort of think that this town is mostly based around tourism, and I don't think there was enough of a boom in this place to really grant having too much industry, but I just figured I'd probably put a little bit around the outskirts of the town and not do too much extra. I'd actually like a lot of the outskirts of this area in particular to have a bit of a like a new development look to it, so as if it was planned to be a new development, and then it didn't really become anything of that. So there might be some roads all sort of like dragged out around here, and some cul-de-sacs, and maybe a couple of houses sprinkled around, but nothing has really boomed in this area. And I've noticed that around Sultan, not Salt Lake City. Sultan City has a whole bunch of these sort of areas, and you know, a whole bunch of planned roads and new development. You know, they were sort of expecting a lot of people to want to buy around here, but I think they probably planned this at the wrong time. I'm pretty sure this like planned area of Sultan City just didn't really eventuate to anything, because I think it was around the same time as a lot of the pollution in this area sort of came about. And now I thought that, well, actually I didn't think that, a lot of you guys were saying that the palm trees in the middle of this road were a bit too tall, which I happen to agree with, so I ended up just downsizing them with a size smaller. I think they fit a lot better too. And also a lot of people saying the lighthouse didn't fit, so I ended up getting rid of that. There's not going to be too many ships coming through this way anyway, so you know, it's not much of a point to have a lighthouse there. Something else in that peninsula would be pretty cool though, but I don't really know what. If you have any suggestions, let me know. Maybe that'll be something we tackle in the live stream. And then to finish things off, I'm going to do a bit of terraforming around the outskirts of the town. I needed to fix up this transition from this temperate environment or this mangroved area and turn it into this like desert landscape where this little town is. And I figured that, you know, maybe I could spread out the mangroves a little bit further, but then I just think that mangroves just don't really fit in this environment. So I'll end up getting rid of most of them and just sort of like using the ground color to change up, you know, to make it look like it's making that transition. It's very unusual, I know, like it's, you know, if this was real life, there'd probably be like, you know, like 200 kilometers or 100 kilometers between such a huge change in landscape. However, for Marble Mountain, Marble Mountain's quite fictional. It's all based on California, and to fit it onto like one map in City Skylines is pretty much impossible. And I really just wanted to squeeze in as many different climates as possible. So, yeah, so it's pretty unrealistic, but you know, that's again part of the charm of this series. It's we're not going for pure realism. We're just going for something that looks pretty interesting, and I think that's probably what we're achieving at the moment. And this is something I'm going to work on in the live stream. I want to create, you know, I want to work on the terraforming around these mountains, these hillsides, and have these rocks poking up. So it's a bit of a rocky cliff face area. I plan to do this in the live stream, which I'm hoping to do on the weekend. So fingers crossed, you guys. We'll see if that happens. But like, I'm like 99% sure it is. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. This was a really, really fun episode to put together, so thank you so much. I want to give a special shout out to Mark Jansama, Bob Dakari, and Brandon Ash for your support on Patreon. And guys, until next week, have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya!